Hello my friends, I hope you're doing great. Let's go straight away to the Frontlines update in Zaporizhzhia direction, where Ukrainian army has the major success. There is the deployment of Ukrainian extra forces, so Ukraine is very serious in the occupation of Kamensk and Stepove. Well, at least there is the presence of Ukrainian infantry soldiers also in Stepnohirsk. Russia has been pushed already there for the last months, and recently Ukraine propelled even further. It's not yet visible on this map, but let me show you more details from this exact region. They're coming from Unit Observer. My shout out to this channel, it's available out there on Twitter. Well, here we have the map itself, and we may click to read out the detailed analysis about this situation. So the map shows that Ukraine regained some of the positions on the way to reach Kamensk. And the Russians, well, they have some of the small infiltration attacks in the same region, but Ukraine has the general advantage over the Russian army because Ukraine sent some of the extra forces. Moreover, you may see multiple of the Ukrainian counterattack vectors in Sherbaki also. There is the group of Ukrainian army. Now I would say that there is the risk for the Russian 7th Army in this place and the entire Russian group in Kamensk. Because if Ukrainian counteroffensive towards Kamensk is successful, Ukraine will just cut Russian supplies for entire region from the north of Kamensk. And Ukraine, as you see, does it in a smart way, so they keep Russian forces busy in Stepnohirsk, but the main attack is happening actually to cut Russian supplies. And there is the lake and kind of the very small speed, which is easy to hit both with the drones and aviation gliding strikes. Russia, by the way, lost there already hundreds of the soldiers probably, and for entire battle for Kamensk and Stepnohirsk, Russians lost thousands of the forces. So of course the advantage goes for Ukrainian side, and here we have the information about it. Despite Russian success earlier this year in deeply infiltrating towards the northern areas, those villages, Novaya Yakovlivka and Vasilyanka, Ukrainian counterattack continued to roll back previous advances. Ukraine reinforced with 153rd Mechanized Brigade. From the Kherson direction they were sent there. 128th Mountain Brigade is working there against Russians and also counterattacking. One counterattack goes towards Stepnohirsk. Stepnohirsk is over there, just to remind you. It was reinforced by HUR forces, so military intelligence of Ukraine, and there were some of the videos published. I already shared those previously on my channel. Meanwhile, Russia tries to also reinforce their group with 7th Air Assault Division, and alongside with 108th and 247th Air Assault Regiments. Plus, for the last couple of months, Russia sent the elements of 299th Airborne Regiment. And those are elite forces of the Russian army, not just random guys with the flags, but instead Russia is damn serious about Kamensk and Stepnohirsk. As we see, Ukraine also deploys very capable forces from HUR, so the fight is not that easy in this direction, but the stakes are high themselves, because Stepnohirsk opens the way to Zaporizhzhia itself. Here Zaporizhzhia is actually very close to the front line, and before Russians even went to Richne, but now they've been sent to Plavny and back to Kamensk mainly. They still control the southern area, especially this part, and Ukraine is using aviation gliding bombs to get rid of the Russian presence in this very interesting block of the houses. So Russia, despite deploying those VDV divisions as well as 11th VDV Brigade, so really capable, those are crazy guys who are fighting for the Russian elite forces. I mean, they're very capable, but they remain unable to regain significant initiative as the battle for Stepnohirsk enters its 7th month. So even those capable paratroopers, marines, whatsoever, what can they do against Ukrainian FPV drones? For Ukrainian drone operator and for the drone itself, of course, it doesn't matter whether it's a paratrooper or regular Vanka soldier. No, it just flies there and hits the guy. But for sure, those Russian capable brigades, armies and divisions, they have less losses because they may understand of how to deal, how to hide. They of course have better equipment, anti-drone wear and something like that. But at the same time, they face the same problem as the Russian regular army somewhere in Donetsk direction. So this map is fantastic. Unit Observer, thank you so much for your deep analysis of the situation which is happening. Fantastic job, mate. Thank you. My friends, just a short reminder for you, please like this video and subscribe for the channel. By doing those two things, which are free, you are supporting my job and our entire community, propelling videos in algorithms. Thank you so much. But if you definitely want to support the job that I do here every day, and maybe several times per day, you may join my Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below. or join membership of YouTube channel by pressing button join if you watch me on YouTube. My friends, thank you so much for it. You are the best, and now let's continue with the video. And you know what? Russian military channels also confirm the same situation. They show Ukrainian blue arrows there, an advancement towards Plavny, towards Kamensk. Yeah, they show less territorial gains compared to other neutral maps or Ukrainian-made military maps. But the idea is the same. Ukraine goes on counterattack. Ukraine now has initiative despite very capable Russian troops. Now I would say that geography itself plays in favor of Ukraine, because there is the river, and there is the big river of the Dnipro. It goes here. Well, after Kakhovka Dam was destroyed by Russians a couple of years ago, this is not the river any longer, but still it's not possible to use this place for the vehicle advancement or even for infantry forces. Basically, all of that is like a swamp with a very soft ground, and the river goes over here, Dnipro River itself. Also, it's very hard for Russians to send reinforcements to Stepnahirs, to Kamensk, because there are just two ways of how to do it, using the bridge itself or using the speed. So Ukraine basically needs to concentrate drone warfare on two of the points there, two of the spots, and Ukraine may easily cut Russian logistics. The same goes for Pyaty-Khatki, which supplies Stepovo and Maly-Sherbaki. Well, Russians might use some of the secondary roads that go to Stepovo and Maly-Sherbaki, but the terrain is very difficult and they're not serviceable sometimes, especially after the rain. So basically 1, 2, 3 points of the main concentration of the Ukrainian drone strikes, and it creates supply disaster for Russian army. Guys, it's fantastic news. I expected the things to be like that, but a little later. So Ukrainian army is way more successful here than I thought before. Fantastic. And also the fight is ongoing for what? For Malaya Takhmachka. Ukrainian forces are even counterattacking. At the same time, Russians claim that they've established the control over the several buildings of Malaya Takhmachka village, but it's hard to cross-check this information. No visual evidence is being provided. From what I know, Malaya Takhmachka is under Ukrainian control. However, this direction of Orekhov is probably one of the main priorities for Russia, because they cannot hold their forces in Kamensk and Stepnahirs direction, so they might change the vector of their attacks towards Orekhov and nearby settlements to bypass this river Konka and to reach Zaporizhzhia, let's say, from this side. It's like one of the variants for them, but I'm not sure whether there's gonna be any sort of the success for Russian army, especially in the coming couple of years. They were damn serious about Stepnahirsk and Kamensk, but it seems like their operation totally failed here. Yeah, by the way, guys, I forgot to tell you that the truce is over. The war continues full scale out there on the front lines. Well, there was a little bit calm down of the situation, but it was still boiling. We have lots of the videos coming from the front lines showing the actual picture. So the truce as it should be, it wasn't established, really. And just long-range strikes were avoided by both of the sides. So I expect Ukraine maybe to launch strikes this night or maybe the next one. Well, we have the information warning from the channels that the Ukrainians should prepare for the possible Russian strikes in the coming few days. I think so, yes. But Russians also should be prepared, right? Especially their oil facilities. Well, they tried to put some of the grills and anti-drone nets, but it doesn't help against FP1 and FP2 drones, which are quite heavy compared to the standard FPVs, and they're not being stopped by those nets, so they just demolish what is out there in Russia, their oil infrastructure, oil ports, logistic centers, etc. I was surprised that Russia even put the drone protection on their Coast Guard boats, like for example this one. It is fully covered by nets. Well, it might be the solution against smaller drones, but FP2, FP1, especially FP2, it carries more than 100 kilograms of payload. For that drone, it doesn't matter whether they're nets or no nets. Those Coast Guard boats receive usually lots of the damage. And I'm still waiting for the information, at least from Ukrainian president, about the exchange of Ukrainian prisoners of war on the Russian prisoners of war, as it was promised even by Donald Trump, who is the part of this guaranteed deal, 1,000 on 1,000 exchange. Well, Zelensky said about it yesterday that Ukraine is ready, and we all expected for exchange to happen in those 3 days of the ceasefire, But nothing happened, absolutely zero. And there is the vacuum. We don't know what is happening. I hope that the deal was agreed and our guys will return home as fast as possible. We also know that there was an attempt of Putin to sabotage the exchange. He said that Ukraine is not ready for it. Very strange. And rumors tell that there should be Azov soldiers after all. Well, guys, this is just an unconfirmed information. That's what those experts type in the chat. But yeah, I just don't want to tell the wrong information here, especially when it touches relatives of those soldiers who are now in captivity. So I hope that there will be exchange. I hope that all of the Azov soldiers, Azovstal defenders will return back as well. But we'll see. I hope at least for some exchange, and let's avoid those speculations because still no like really evident information, robust one presented online. Yeah, waiting for it. Right, here we have some of the images from the front lines. The Ukrainian drone found the group of the Russian vehicles, motorcycles, and the Russian infantry. Probably they had some of the wedding. So Ukrainian wedding photographers decided to greet them and to take the photo. Yeah. And it was successfully done by our guys there. I think it happened a few days ago. The job was conducted by the 1st Azov Corps. Alright, now back to the military map, and this one is published by Michael73 Analyst, and his link is in the video description right below. I'm always using his maps, they're very interactive, and I see that there are some of the spots where definitely ceasefire was conducted, like for example in Gulai Pole. Those are old symbols dated from a couple of weeks ago. But if we move to Novopavlovka, there Russians actually tried to attack Ukrainian positions and they were stopped by Ukrainian drones. On their maps, they showed that they were successful. But de facto, no. They try actually to get Novopavlovka for already very long time, for more than a year. And all of their attack attempts, they basically failed. The first one was crazy, outrageous. They went to Novopavlovka under the cover of the fog, and later on weather improved rapidly. All of the Russian infantry with the vehicles, they were spotted and annihilated. Well, Russians expanded recently territorial gains not far away from this gas station near Grishina village. This is their own territorial gains for the area, and Konstantinovka, it is hot. It was boiling even during the ceasefire. What is interesting that Russians are saying that Ukraine goes on counterattack towards Ivanopilia, which is kind of far away from Konstantinovka itself, and I wonder if Ukraine conducts that operation just using drones, or there could be even infantry. But looking at this direction, I don't think that it's very risky to use infantry there. So yeah, again, Russian map from Rybar channel. They show Konstantinovka and this gray area. It is zoomed in over here, Konstantinovka itself, and there's where Ukrainian counteroffensive is happening. Exactly the same spot as I showed you before. Very interesting. Well, they hesitated to show red arrows because after all it was the ceasefire. Okay, we believe you, yeah, that Russians, they absolutely didn't have any sort of the attempts to move and take Ukrainian positions. It is unusual, but we know that they tried to get to Novopavlovka and that attack attempt failed. And yeah, just right now, while I am filming this video, Russian drones are already spotted in Ukrainian airspace. Here is the map for you. Exactly what I see here. The air raids are being announced in multiple Ukrainian regions, and I guess they will also be heard in Russia, even today, because Ukraine will respond on the Russian strikes. Yeah guys, today I recorded a video about how Russia stalls on the front lines, how it is not capable to achieve the goals, and we have the same information from legacy media already. This is the article from The Economist. For the first time in almost 3 years, the initiative in the war appears to have shifted to Ukraine. And guys, I'm reviewing the front lines, all the situation around Ukraine for more than 4 years, and I see that definitely it's like that for the last 3 years, and maybe, well, not 3 but 2 years, I haven't seen such large Ukrainian territorial gains. Mostly Russia had initiative, and even during the Kursk operation, I would say Russia was very successful in Donetsk direction, but here we see that NATO, they lose the ground, which is outstanding. So Ukraine is now turning tide in inflicting increasing damage on Russia on virtually every front. So front lines, middle-range strikes, long-range strikes, exactly what I told you before. So Russian troops suffered their first net territorial losses since August 2024. Then Ukraine started the Kursk operation. Russia has lost control over 113 square kilometers in the last 30 days. The drone kill zone, which has now been stretched by 20 kilometers on the front lines, is expanding far into Russia's rear. And we don't see the same expansion from Russia. So Ukraine has more tools, more capabilities, even for 2,000 kilometers strikes deep inside Russia. So Ukraine has an advantage in this drone war. Now we may definitely say that Ukraine already took initiative and tactical advantage over Russia. And to compensate that, well, how Russia may do it, just announcing mobilization, maybe. That is what they say, Russian military channels. As you know, guys, recently United States has released UFO files. Well, our guys also has released those from the drone interceptor. What the hell is this? This is like from some sort of the video game, right? What is that? It was flying at the altitude of 800 meters, somewhere over Ukraine. Well, actually it was photographed in May 2025, so the last year, previous year, 1 year ago. But this video has just been released. Very interesting. What kind of UFO is that? Unknown flying object or unidentified flying object, but it was filmed literally by our guys. And it's not a hoax, because the image was commented by Ukrainian drone operator, one of the main ones in Ukrainian army, Flash, and he commented, some sort of the flying object, yes. Okay. Right, guys, some political news, I need to comment those as well. So Boris Pistorius, who is the defense minister of Germany, visited Kyiv yesterday. I think he is still in Kyiv and there are rains already in Kyiv. Maybe he went home already, I'm not sure. But what is very important that Ukraine signed multiple of the agreements in army cooperation between Germany and Ukraine. The joint development of drones, drone systems, and moreover, Germany will finance Ukrainian air defense, like for example, Patriot missiles. Fantastic. Germany, thank you so much for your kind support. Yeah, sorry for the advertisements on the screen, but nevertheless, New York Times published the article. Yeah, it's the Kyiv News article about the New York Times article. But nevertheless, New York Times says that the peace deal is dead. And Kyiv pulls back from United States mediation as Trump's peace push stalls. So what happened that the United States canceled the leverage on Ukraine themselves? Donald Trump did it. The 99% of the direct military support for Ukraine is being canceled. And Kyiv now is relying less on the United States as the key mediator in effort to end Russia's war against Ukraine, with Donald Trump's administration no longer viewed by Ukrainian officials as the unquestioned ally, as it was just at the start of the full-scale war, New York Times reported today, or yesterday. Wow, what a surprise. Definitely, negotiations with Russia are not possible. I wouldn't say the United States really played the role here, but Donald Trump with his team, they're actors which are working for Russians' favor in those negotiations. And for Europeans, for Ukrainians, everything is pretty much understandable where the vector or whom Donald Trump really wants to push. He wants to push Ukraine for giving up territories of Donbass, but those are not just territories, yeah? Those are people who live there. Around 100,000 people who still live in Kramatorsk, Slaviansk, Drushkivka, all of those settlements kind of close to the front lines, but they live. And those are homes of the people, and Ukraine is not in a state in giving voluntarily its own territories. Russia is not encircling Kyiv. Ukraine is not losing this war from what we see on the front lines, yeah? Russia actually doesn't have this advantage as Ukraine has, especially speaking about the drones. Russia is unable to reach its frontline initiative, even on tactical level. That's why they're acting via Donald Trump to push Ukraine without any fights to give up territories. That's the real thing for Russia. So actually with this New York Times article, nothing new there. Alright, this one I don't freaking understand. As the aviation guy, like, Ukraine asks Europe to broker airport ceasefire with Putin. Shit. Like, it's not about those airports. Like, you can open those CTRs, TMA areas around airports. Well, okay, but what about your own air defense? Then Russian drones are flying all around Ukrainian territory, and who would guarantee that drones will not fly to the airport? Or who would guarantee that your own missiles would not intercept any sort of the commercial flying vehicle there? So I wouldn't go to Ukraine if they open those airports and trusting Russia, then there is the full-scale war. Come on, like, this is useless. They always tell about those airports, about renewing the air traffic connections, but no, I don't believe that it might happen. And just to remind you, Ukraine lost tons of the Soviet jets because of the friendly fire, and at least one F-16, maybe two. But I know about the one which was hit and pilot unfortunately died. That happened because of miscoordination of the actions. There was the major attack of the Russian drones and missiles towards the western part of Ukraine. F-16 took off to hit those cruise missiles, but it was shut down by Patriot, I think, system. But I'm not sure which system was used, but it was a friendly freaking fire. So no, it will not work. Yeah, now the problem goes with the supplies of the air defense missiles to Ukraine. Even some of the European partners refuse to send those missiles to Ukraine because they're not sure if they have their own missiles from the United States on time. All of that is because of the war in Iran. This is not great, of course, and you see those confrontations, military conflicts and wars around the world. Actors are the same, and unfortunately that war that Donald Trump together with Netanyahu started in Iran is not playing great role for the defense of Europe and Ukraine personally. An interesting statement here from the Sweden Supreme Commander. He stated that Russia is getting ready to test NATO alliance sooner than expected. So Russia may test NATO sooner than the 1 to 5 year window most alliance security services have been working with. So they almost sure about the possible kind of the special military operation of the Russian army, I guess, in Baltic states. Well, we understand that Russian army bogged down in Ukraine, but whether NATO army is that drone ready for the war of the 21st century as, for example, Russian army? I don't think so, and Russia, after all, may test not with a full-scale war like it is in Ukraine, but they might have some of the, again, small operation. Taking few of the villages is enough to test NATO's reaction. Well, NATO understands that, that's why it increases its military presence, it rearms itself, but there is the window until this military superiority is achieved by NATO in that particular region, logistics is placed and everything of that. So now there is the window of NATO, while it's still rearming, before defenses reach their intended strength. So NATO, well, this commander at least, is saying that NATO is not ready for now. We have this window while we are not ready, and Donald Trump is not coming. In the best case scenario, he would send some of the weapons, best case, but overall, Donald Trump is very dissatisfied with NATO, you know it. So Russia cannot defeat NATO militarily. Yes, it's understandable. So the target is alliance cohesion. He warned about potential strike on Baltic Island, not to seize territory, but to test whether every NATO member would respond to attack on one of them. Spoiler alert, not every NATO member would react on that militarily. It is also understandable. He also stressed that such operation would not require troops from Ukraine. A smaller limited move would be enough to run that test. Yes, exactly what I told you guys. It is out there on a plate, like what Russia is telling is actually about those small operations. When he asked directly when Russia might be ready, he answered with one word: now. He added, they know the entire Western world is getting ready. Why would one wait to exploit perceived vulnerabilities? Asked if it sounds dangerous, Commander did not soften it. Yes, it is clear that it is dangerous. He stressed that Sweden and its neighbors must continue rearming, training and maintaining readiness persistently over time. On the Baltic Sea, he pointed out to the growing Russian shadow fleet and tightening escorts around those vessels as direct and growing source of escalation risks. Asked whether the situation is worse than in a few years ago, he said yes. So Russia may escalate, yes. They may say, like, they may attack some of the Baltic countries, like Estonia, for example, or Latvia, Lithuania, doesn't matter. From Belarus territory, even occupy Suwalki corridor with thousands of the forces. And they might say, okay, you want your territory back, NATO? You want de-escalation? Well, stop supporting Ukraine. Leave the sanctions from Russia and we're good to go. We're gonna return you your territories and you don't need to engage in World War III. Just let us have Ukraine, and those are, ex-Russian territories. Ukraine was the part of the Russian Empire. Ukraine was the part of the Soviet Union, yeah. So we need Ukraine. And if you try to take, for example, Kaliningrad, as many people say, yeah, Europe will take Kaliningrad in this case. I don't think so. Russia has nukes, and no one knows what is in that head of Putin. Yeah, clearly it is understandable that Putin likes his life and everything, but who knows what that guy thinks. And he's also getting older as Donald Trump. He's getting more unhinged, unpredicted. So I don't think that European politicians would risk their lives and their stability. You see, just look at those European politicians. They're just bureaucrats. There is no vivid leader. All of the gray crowd of freaking bureaucrats. Their interest is to get elected, get money, some of the corruption schemes as everywhere. By the way, in Ukraine there is corruption scandal. I'm gonna record a separate video about that one tomorrow. Crazy scandal, one more wave, and it's about president's friends, sadly. So honestly, guys, if Russia starts that operation, I do not expect this joint reaction. Yeah, some countries may react, especially in that region like Finland, Sweden, Baltic countries, maybe Poland, maybe Germany, but it's also under the big question. We'll see. But not fully reacting. Yeah, not fully. Just with some random forces trying to stop Russians there. But Russians will have time and efforts and resources and drones, most of all, to occupy some of the ground. And they will trade it for stability of Europe and exchange for canceling the military support for Ukraine completely. That is, I think, one of the variants of how Putin sees his goal in Ukraine, because now his army, in those useless mid-wave attacks or infiltration attacks, it bogged down completely. So he needs to look for possible solutions, whether to announce mobilization or make this trick. But again, this is kind of risky, at the same time, because no one had before attacked NATO country. But at the same time, we know that Putin likes dvizhuha, this action, as he tells. In dvizhuha in Ukraine is not happening any longer, and new dvizhuha is possible in NATO countries in Europe. And you might say, NATO is the alliance which has nuclear weapons. It's the red line. They'll escalate or retaliate with nukes or something really terrible. Well, Russia also said like that openly, but Ukraine actually was the first country in the world which back in 2024 went to Russian territory, a territory of nuclear country, Kursk Oblast, and attacked it. Yeah, still it was, as Russians say, the part of the special military operation. Ukraine has its own inception, the special operation within the special military operation, but Russians, they did not retaliate. It was the red line for them. Yes, before they stated Ukraine will never attack us, otherwise we're going to use nukes. Ukraine will never send attackers to us, otherwise we're going to use nukes. Medvedev told about it, Putin hinted that, but nothing happened. Yeah, so red line is not a red line. So Europe may also proclaim their own red lines, but de facto we will see. We cannot even predict what it might happen. On the paper, everything should be absolutely great for NATO. It should consolidate forces, react, blah, blah, blah. But we understand the problems with logistics, first of all, into Baltic states, geography problems, everything of that. And we understand those bureaucrats who are mainly useless. They need time to think. Just imagine if Ukraine was supplied right away with all of those weapons which later on were supplied. But no, HIMARS, can we supply? We shouldn't escalate. They will think exactly the same. I guarantee you guys. If Putin attacks Baltic states, it's going to be a very big challenge for Europe, for NATO, and I'm not sure whether this challenge is going to play well for this military bloc. Honestly, we might see that NATO is kind of useless as the United Nations, for example, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe NATO would respond with every forces they have. But something tells me that it's not going to be like that. We'll see. I hope that Putin will not attack NATO, but unfortunately it's not up to NATO to decide. NATO could be just ready for it, but they require lots of the years to be prepared, as commanders say. So they're now unprepared. Yeah, so Putin has this window. Exactly. Those are not my words, guys. This guy said it. This is the problem. Well, guys, anyways, let's be optimistic. At least in Ukraine, Russia lost its advantage. It is visible, it is outstanding, and thank you guys for supporting Ukraine, supporting democracy, and also you may support this channel, by the way. You may do it by checking the link and join my Patreon. Yeah, I tell it like that. And also you may join YouTube membership by pressing button join if you watch me on YouTube. And obviously, if you can, I'm not begging for funds or something, no, just it's the help for the channel. Without your support, my job wouldn't be possible. As you see, I upload quite often here, and it's only because of your kind support, my friends. And also, please don't forget to press like to this video and subscribe for the channel, because we are on the way to reach 1 million subscribers. That's going to be a huge milestone for the channel, for our entire community. My friends, you are awesome, you are the best, and I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.